this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Madeline, redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Moore. Got a question for you. What were you doing when you were 13 years old and you were attending middle school? For me, it was waiting on a bus to come and pick me up during school year. Sports every day of some kind, even those that I was no good at. And friends that I still rode bikes with and went to a local field and played baseball with, or touch football. But not for Madeline Soto. We've already covered Madeline's case. Now I urge you to please check out the earlier episode, but there have been some developments in her case, and I feel the need right now to update, because this is significant. It really gives us an insight into the life that I'm not going to say that she lived, but that she was subjected to. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. And the hits keep on coming, Dave.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's fatigue on my part, heartache fatigue, because it seems like every single time we sit down, we're talking about another victimized child. And it just goes on and on and on. And when you don't think it can get any more depraved, up pops the case of Madeline Soto. And we've known a lot, I think, to a great degree, but I would say that as a result of recent developments, as of just, days ago, that we have more information relative to her short and tragic life, how it came to an end, and what was going on leading up to that moment. I got to tell you, it's weird. It's a weird thing for me. We've always heard of stranger danger. People talk about that a lot, and you take care when you walk down streets in the evening. You don't know what's lurking around any corner or alleyway. But the real monsters many times exist under our own roofs. And I think that's the case with Madeline.
The Kissimmee Police Department released an 80-page investigative document summary that gave us information that we just didn't have before. Some information that we actually, kind of had thought about, thought that this is what happened. In particular, we already know that the medical examiner is not going to release the autopsy report. We know this because can you? Yeah, I was going to say, please expand on that and just tell me. It's because
tell us why. Educate us on this.
It's just because first of all, Madeline is 13 years old at the time she died. Just turned 13 years old. That's part one. But the real reason, because an argument could be made that 13 is not too young to release it. The reason they're not releasing her autopsy is because it is a direct result of domestic violence.
Ooh.
That's why. So
Gotcha.
You've got the double whammy of age and domestic violence, which goes to what you were just talking about, how stranger danger is one thing. This is domestic violence and abuse at a level that I don't think we are at the end yet. I think there is going to be someone else that has to have some accountability and be responsible for what took place. Because when you, as a parent, directly put your child in a situation for them to be abused, as in, let's all sleep together in the same bed, and hey, I have a headache tonight, I need a good night's sleep. You two, my 13-year-old daughter Madeline and my boyfriend Stephen Stearns, y'all two sleep in the upstairs bedroom by yourselves, just the two of you. I'm sleeping here alone tonight, which is exactly what happened the last night of her life. Madeline Soto was sent to bed with her mom's boyfriend, an adult, 38 years old, I think.
Back to my early comment about stranger danger again. If you're attacked out on the street and, like a robbery gone bad or, whatever the case might be, that's generally a one-off event. Mm-hmm. The life that this child lived, and this goes to the domestic violence part of this, right. Dave, it was every day that she was coming home to this. Just let that sink in. The terror of this, the violence of this, they talk about domestic violence. This is ongoing violence that's committed against her. What is it that you famously say? An adult cannot have sex with a child.
Nope.
What is it? Please tell us this again, because I think this is profound. It's profound.
You can't have sex with a child. You can rape a child, right, but you cannot have sex with a child. And I'm about tired of hearing it said like that, because it is said. I said it out loud once on a different story and was corrected by a friend of mine who said, Dave, since when can a child consent to sex with an adult?
Yeah.
And if they can't, then it's not sex.
No, it's not. It's rape is what it is. It's what it comes down to. And this is the life that she apparently, from what we understand now, had been living. But back to this idea of not being able to release the autopsy report because of these restrictions relative to domestic violence and obviously her age, I think the medical examiner has actually given us some information that hopefully will satisfy the public's need to know, balanced with other considerations. And they have listed her death. They've given us a direct diagnosis. They're saying that this is a death as a result of a strangulation. And I find this, it's kind of interesting on a couple of levels, and just give me a little rope here, and I want to explore this. This was not like, I think that some people thought that maybe she had been beaten to death or something like that. Maybe there was a bit of trauma in this way, but the actual cause of death is strangulation. Here's another bit that is quite fascinating about this case. Apparently, Stearns had done research on an agent that's called sevoflurane, and sevoflurane is a medicine that's administered for anesthesia. It's generally given in concert with nitrous oxide. It's used quite a bit. It can be used with humans. It's used quite a bit in veterinary medicine, and from my understanding, it can be used in context of like an outpatient event where you're going to take that person on a limited time, and you're going to, take them out of the state of consciousness so that you can go forth and do surgery. He had actually researched this drug. It's a very specific drug. This is not like he's looking for ether or something like this. It's kind of unknown. I don't know how he came to this, but they did find searches for this. So either way, he was thinking about depriving her breath, her ability to breathe on her own, because if you give somebody sevoflurane, if you give it to them in a significant dosage, you can send them into respiratory arrest. It can compromise them to that point where they would die. And I'm wondering, if that was going to be what his end game was, how would that be explained away? and all the research that I've done, I can't find that it would escape toxicological discovery. But it's not something you would commonly search for. If you were doing a standard panel at Autopsy. He did do the search for it. I really wonder how broad a spectrum they did, because we're not going to know this, Dave. Not until trial. We're not going to have access to her toxicology records from the autopsy. So I'd like to know if some type of agent like this, it doesn't necessarily have to be this drug, played a role in this, because what you're trying to do is, and the other piece to this is I thought, well, maybe he was going to try to apply this and then take her life after she was under, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. As opposed to just strangulation. I don't know. There's any number of ways you can think about this, but that's just some of the things that I've entertained, thinking about that, and how would it be that you would bring about her death? It's fascinating. I just don't understand how he got hold of this information. What kind of other searches had he been doing?
I had never heard of it, Joe. I actually had to Google it to see how to pronounce it, because I'd never heard of it, never knew. And now I thought, well, now it's somebody in my world circle, and now it's going to be a search on my thing. So it's like, just, market body bags.
Well, don't listen, don't feel like the Lone Ranger there. I didn't know how to pronounce it, really, because it's something that's, for me to say that it's exotic, it's not something that you're going to come across every day, right. Like ether. Right. It's not something that you will, that you will have, or chloroform. I mean, chloroform is, and people, I actually got into a debate with Nancy several years ago about, because you find chloroform sometimes in decomposing bodies that have been left out in the forest. And one of the things that happens is
like that natural?
It will naturally occur as a result of decomposition, and also decomposition of vegetation. So it'll be out there. And that might have been having to do with Kaylee Anthony. I can't remember. It seems like that's something that had come up. But, you think about those agents and how a person with twisted mind would try to go about covering their tracks. And I find it very interesting as well, having worked and covered a number of these cases of child rape, and we'll say it plainly, child sexual abuse. If you have a child predator like this, did you know that they work in age groups? And I was fascinated by this. It's like they have a particular age group that's bracketed, from what psychologists say, that once that child kind of moves on from that outer parameter of age, they no longer have any utility. They still want that childlike quality in them. And I'm really wondering if potentially that could have been a motivation here. And I still have to wonder if there are other children. I don't know. I don't know, because generally where there's one, when you have a predator, there's a high probability that along the way they've come in contact with somebody else.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
What else did you glean here?
In this 80-page report, Joe?
Yeah.
Before we dig into it, I wanted to ask you something about the autopsy that we were told. Strangulation. And the doctor who performed the autopsy actually mentioned the hyoid bone. And it's something that we talk about, it seems like, whenever there is a strangulation. And I was talking to one of the folks that we have on the show on a regular basis, and he is not necessarily in this realm, and he said, "What is that?" And I thought, I know what it is because I've done the show. With you, but not everybody knows what that hyoid bone is. And I thought now would be a really good time because that's all we really got out of the autopsy report was strangulation, and this hyoid bone in her neck was impacted on the right side.
Yeah. Well, it's described. And look, we went over this, not we.
Yes.
Because I still have yet to do an episode. People have been begging me for it about Epstein, and I've kind of stayed away from it. But I don't want to sully her memory with the likes of Jeffrey Epstein.
I would have lost a bet if somebody asked if we'd covered it because we've covered it so many times on other shows together and apart.
I've never touched it. I've stayed away from it. But we heard about the hyoid a lot per Dr. Bodden and through other people as well. And I've come in contact with hyoids. You remove them at autopsy, and if you will, the best way I can describe it is if you go north of your Adam's apple on the anterior aspect of your throat, almost to where you're at the curvature of your neck as it begins to curve to underneath where the floor of your mouth is and you're going up to your chin, that junction right there, that's essentially where it sits. It's the only non-articulating bony process in the human body. It's not connected to any other bony structure. Its simple purpose is to anchor the tongue in the back of the mouth. And that's all it's there. But this is the thing. When they talk about the right side of it, it's a very fragile bone. It looks, if you look at it, it's not as robust, but it looks a lot like a wishbone that you would see in a chicken. It is doctors describe it as a bird-like structure. And when you think about bird, just think about a bird with its wings expanded and the tips kind of going in a delta shape so that they're backwards. So if it's a bird-like structure, the head of the bird, if you superimpose that on the shape of the bone, is looking directly at you as you're looking at it through the neck. And so the wings extend backwards, and they're not called wings. They're called horns, and you have a greater horn and a lesser horn on both of them. There are these little bony protuberances on each end. And one of the things that you look for are little lines of fracture. The only way, with very few exceptions, that this bone ever gets fractured or there's associated hemorrhage is manual strangulation. Because it's so high up in the neck, and if people will just imagine their hands shaped like in a classic movie image, like you've got a strangler that's coming towards somebody with both hands side by side, and they're going to reach around the throat, the anterior aspect of the throat, and squeeze. Your hands go really high up on the throat when you do that. Nooses do not do that. They don't. Ligatures don't do that. There are cases of judicial hangings where the hyoid has been fractured. More than likely, generally, you're going to get cartilage fractures that are going to be in the larynx that's below the level of the hyoid. So I've only had one other case, and I'll relate it very quickly. It doesn't have anything to do with Madeline, but just so that people understand, I've only had one other case in my entire career outside of a manual strangulation where I had a fractured hyoid, and that is a guy that was in a 1968 Pontiac Bonneville, and he went over the side of a 3-story ramp off of an outlet of I-10. And of course, he didn't have a seatbelt on, and had you remember the old gigantic steering wheels that these huge cars had, these boats had, and he hit the steering wheel, we believe, at the 12 o'clock position, directly, like he raised his chin at the last moment and struck that steering wheel, and it fractured his hyoid. That's the only time I've ever seen it in my own practice. Now, other people have seen it. I'm not the only, cat on the block. It's just my little worldview. I have to phrase that for everybody, because just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I'd be a fool. But the doctor in Madeline's case is talking about this insult or whatever is going on, with the hyoid. I'm going to be very interested to see when the full autopsy report is released, and, we can examine it more clearly, but we do know that she was strangled, Dave.
That's remarkable. I never knew. I actually, while you were talking, I looked up greater horn, lesser horn, and saw the diagram and actually saw pictures. That's just amazing, Joe. Some other things that came out on the Kissimmee, Florida Police Department. In particular, they showed her picture. They showed her mother, Jen Soto. Jennifer Soto is on body cam footage with Stephen Stearns the night they called police to report Madeline missing. And in that report, she's right there with Stephen. Never occurs to her that anything's gone wrong at all. And she pretty much defended everything. She talked about, the three of them sleeping together and how that sometimes Stephen and Madeline would sleep together. And she was right there with him until police finally, they arrested Stephen Stearns while the search for Madeline was ongoing. He was arrested before her body was found. And in this interview room with Jen Stearns, with Maddie's mother, they showed pictures and videos of that Stephen Stearns had taken of him with Madeline and showed it to her mother. And her mother said, he's a master liar. Stephen is a master liar and manipulator. And confessed that he groomed her and abused her. A little odd to come up with it only after seeing those pictures, but that is what was said in the report.
Yeah, there's key in that language. Language is something else, isn't it? It can reveal a lot. You can say for me, she could have said, yeah, I think he's a manipulator. But that's not how she classified it, Dave. She gave him a grade. She said master.
Yep.
Master liar, master manipulator. So that goes to evaluation now, doesn't it?
It does.
That means that you had time to form an opinion. So let's just think about, okay, if you're talking about somebody that works in a skilled laborer, and I've got many of my relatives that are, you start off as an apprentice, right? Then you go to journeyman, and then you become a master. So that means that's an observable event on her part. She's had time to grade him, and she's not saying he is a master boyfriend. The best boyfriend in the world. No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying that he is a master liar and a master manipulator.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Madeline.
Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
And then to use the phraseology of grooming as well. Mm-hmm. Well, so you understand what that means? Mm-hmm. You understand, because that's your diagnosis. Literally, I mean, if you're asking her to diagnose the man and the situation that she is part and parcel of, then you can assess this as he was grooming her. How this almost makes me want to start throwing furniture in my studio right now. This is so infuriating to me, and I think it's a portent, like you had mentioned earlier. You alluded to it. I think it's a portent of something to come, Dave.
I think it was interesting that she said in the interview he did it, and the detective said, "What do you mean? Who did what?" And that's when she said he was grooming and abusing Madeline. And one thing I do want to point out is Jennifer Soto has not been charged with anything at this point. There's no suggestion that she will be charged. However, this information is very important in the grand scheme of things as we try to find out, to make sense of how can we warn other children in this environment. Because some things that came out during the investigation, Joe, is that her friends, Madeline's friends, said she was constantly on the phone with Stephen Stearns. He was like constantly texting, constantly calling. He just was like he was in fact obsessed to a degree, and that inappropriate relationship that was going on, and it was not an inappropriate relationship. It can't be a relationship between an adult man and a 13-year-old girl. It has to be rape, and that's what was going on. And the reality of all of what just came out in this report really confirms what many of us had concluded without knowing. But there was interesting stuff that came out about the body, Joe, where they found Madeline Soto. We were told that she was found in an area near where Stephen Stearns' car was broken down with a flat tire, and he was seen with a tire iron. Well, now we know more. Now we know how they found her body. See, it wasn't that police just zeroed in on, okay, this is where his car had a flat tire. They had an eyewitness that actually gave them a lot more than that. A man, he saw a press conference and the car they were looking for. And this man called the police, said, hey, I know that car. I saw that car broken down right out here. Matter of fact, I took a picture.
Oh, yep.
And he showed them the picture he took of that and a map. He pointed it out on a map. So police were then able to go to this one specific area near where the car had broken down, and they found a farming area, a gate, and the gate was locked. It had a north end and it had north and south ends, and it was all locked. The gate hadn't been messed with. And so the FBI and law enforcement all together go out there, and they get the owner to come out and unlock the gate. And they were there in no time before they saw her body. This was on March 1st. She had been missing 4 days at that point.
Yeah.
And if you remember, before they found her body, it was shocking to you and I think we talked about it. Very rarely do police come out and say, we're looking for a body before so early in the investigation. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, because particularly when it comes to kids, there's, and make no mistake, she's a kid. She's 13 years old.
Yes, just turned 13.
Just turned 13. There's that hope, that kind of dangles out in front of you, and you're hoping that they're still alive. But this was a very definitive. I remember this distinctly. I'm glad you reminded me of it. But it's a very definitive moment, where they're looking for human remains at this point in time. They did find them, and it appears as though that she had essentially been pushed over the top of the fence.
Joe, for the life of me, Joe, I was thinking, you and I just did a show the other day on decomposition.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this based on what I have been able to learn and glean from you.
Yeah. Wouldn't
there have been the odor of decomposition in that area near the fence?
Possibly, but it would not be overwhelming. Remember, we're still talking, even though it's Kissimmee. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me put that in here. We're in Florida.
Right.
It's not like you're in Massachusetts. Okay.
Right.
There's a possibility that you, even just after 4 days, you could have, but unfortunately, I have not come strike that 3, 2. I've not materialized before you with my meteorological charts from that time. But it does get cool.
Yeah.
In Kissimmee in March. This ain't June or July, and as we talked about in the decompositional episodes, heat speeds things up. So there might not have been enough time over this 4-day period for there to be significant decompositional or obvious decompositional changes. Where we're looking for those signs. because we're beyond micro at that time. We're talking about macro presentations at the 4-day level. And I'm sure that there was or were some changes, and those will probably be alluded to in the autopsy report, and it's going to be quite striking. One other thing, too, that I have to put out there, they said that she had socks on, and as you mentioned, you're talking about the shoulder of a road adjacent to where if she's got socks on, there are no shoes, you would expect the socks to be dirty. That ain't the case. Her socks were clean, which means, I don't think she could levitate. So there would have been footfalls on the ground. She would have struck dirt, grass. There would have been stains on the soles of her feet, on the socks, obviously on the socks. And there was nothing of that, which means that she was affected in some way, either through a rush, kicked her shoes off, didn't put her shoes on, but she got into that car. And here's the thing, she had her socks on. I don't think that somebody would take time to put socks on the deceased individual. So that brings us back around. Where did the homicide take place? Did it take place in their domicile? And then she was transported from the domicile into the car. And remember the videography that we've got where I think that she is leaning over, or it appears to be her, and it looks like an odd position. As a matter of fact, there are others that have commented on this and have stated that it appears as though she may have been deceased at that time.
Multiple pictures and different areas that it was in the same position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that car, I think, and the house itself is going to be a touchstone in this case for a variety of reasons. We already know the electronic evidence. I refuse to go into all of that right now. This is enough to digest at this point. The stuff that they found on his phone that goes back, God bless her, for years. Yeah. For years, Dave. And it's an evidence-rich environment. We don't know what else. We don't know if she had recorded anything, if there were any statements from her, if she had anything. We do know that she had a phone. Were there any text messages there that might have some significance to them? Were there photographs of abuse on her part where she, maybe in her own little way, she was trying to document? I have no insight into that. I don't know. But those are big questions that still have to be asked. But I can tell you, as I do with all of our cases, Dave, we're going to continue to watch this case. And this is going to be, I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a landmark case, but it is a case nonetheless that has such weight to it, where it shines a light on the abuse that's going on out there. Even right now, as you and I are talking, my friend, it's going on out there. There are other Madeline Sotos out there right now. We need to be aware of that. And I hope that her case, her little life that she led, again, will be a warning to those that perpetrate crimes against children. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.